Hi, I'm Reese Harvey, and today I will be talking about the Colorado River and the collaborative process that created a management plan for the river. Looking at the overview for this presentation, we will begin by discussing the Colorado River and its significance. We will then take a brief look at the history of the Colorado River and dive straight into the main issue going on with the river. We will then discuss the Glen Canyon Dam and its relation to the Colorado River. We will also take a look at the environmental impact statement and those involved within the collaborative process. After that, the alternatives and other laws affecting the alternatives will be discussed, as well as the preferred alternative that was chosen as the management plan. To wrap up the presentation, we will look at the experiments associated with the management plan, as well as discuss the current state of the river. Fed by waters from the Rocky Mountains, the Colorado River is one of the largest in the United States. Looking at the map, it can be seen how many states and cities depend on the Colorado River as a source of water. The well-known Lake Mead and Lake Powell are filled from this river, which also flows through the Grand Canyon, and about 90% of the water used by Las Vegas comes from the Colorado River. The river is so large and important that even Mexico depends on it as a source of water. The river had remained mostly untouched and unclaimed until the year 1920. After 1920, states began to divide the river. Dams began to be built and flow was altered to run towards the more highly populated cities, as they needed water to keep up with their growing population. These early claims and laws that were drafted fit well for their time, but fell short of accurately addressing modern concerns and issues with the river, as the water that was available back in 1920 is not the amount of water that is available today. Certain global situations have led to the overuse of the river, which is causing it to run dry towards the end of its course. Global warming is the easy culprit to blame, but it is also due to overpopulation. The vast amount of people using this river's water is a clear reason as to why it is drying up. The river feeds 7 states as well as Mexico, so this is not just a U.S. issue, but an international issue as well. Everyone believes that they deserve to use the water from the river. The presence of the Glen Canyon Dam also provides issue for the river and was thought to be a big reason as to why the Colorado was running dry. The dam uses a lot of water to provide hydroelectric power, and some believe that the dam should no longer be in use so as to restore the natural flow of the river. The usage of this dam was the area of focus for the collaborative process and environmental impact statement created. This collaborative process brought together many different agencies, not all of which are listed below. The purpose of having agencies such as the U.S. Department of the Interior, Bureau of Reclamation, and National Park Service is mainly due to the location of the river, as well as the dams, reservoirs, and lakes associated with the Colorado River. It is the duty of the Department of the Interior to manage public lands and lead all conservation efforts. The Bureau of Reclamation is closely related to the Department of the Interior, as they are responsible for managing, developing, and protecting water for the American people. The reason that the National Park Service is heavily involved in this process is because the Glen Canyon Dam, which is part of the management plan for the Colorado River, is located within a national park and recreation area. The National Park Service is also involved because Lake Mead and Lake Powell are also part of the management plan for the river. Of the other involved parties, both the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and Arizona Game and Fish Department are responsible for maintaining the health of all wildlife in the proposed management area. The Glen Canyon National Recreation Area is very similar to the National Park Service, as it is responsible for the same thing, just on a smaller and more specific scale. The Western Area Power Administration was involved because of the hydroelectric power that is supplied from the Glen Canyon Dam. Their stake to the river is very important, as they provide power for the area and cannot do so if the river is running dry. Finally, the Bureau of Indian Affairs was consulted, as a lot of the river runs through tribal land, and if a management plan is to be put in place, it must have the approval and input from tribal representatives before action can be taken. The goal of the Bureau of Indian Affairs is to preserve and protect as much of their land as possible. The public was also consulted in a required public comment period where any public opinion would be heard and taken into consideration. These involved agencies, plus many more, came together and were consulted in order to create a management plan for the Glen Canyon Dam in the hopes that it would restore the flow of the Colorado River. This restoration of flow would help to increase the volume of water in the Colorado River, meaning that there will be more water available for the people that depend on the river. The created plan would be in effect for the next 20 years, after which the river would be reevaluated. Before creating a new management plan, already existing laws, other management plans, and conservation plans had to be taken into consideration. This new plan would have to either follow already set regulations and laws or rewrite them to create the new management plan. For example, there is a multi-species conservation program in place for the lower Colorado River that aims to help in the recovery of listed endangered species in the area, as well as take preventative measures to ensure those species do not make it back on the endangered list. There are also a lot of general management plans in place pertaining to Lake Mead, Lake Powell, and the Glen Canyon Dam. These management plans outline how the areas should be managed for the next 10 to 20 years depending on the plan. Other programs that are taking place in the area that were important to keep in mind during this process was a Lake Powell pipeline project, a salinity control program, as well as a management plan designed to reduce current invasive plant species. The presence of all these current management plans and projects can make it not only difficult on the collaborative process, but also delays any action that will be taken, as there are a lot of factors that must be considered before deciding how to handle the current water crisis in the Colorado River. The collaborative process, as well as the drafting of the environmental impact statement, began in the summer of 2011. Each time progress was made, the decisions were released to the public in order for them to make their comments on it. This public comment period would be open anywhere from 90 days to 6 months before the agencies continued their talks. The comments and opinions provided by the public would then be used to help shape the plans being made. After the back and forth between the agencies and public for 5 years, the final statement was released in 2016. The public was then given a 90-day period to make their final comments, after which the alternatives from the EIS were officially released. Once the collaboration and comment periods were completed, there were 7 proposed alternatives. As always, one of the 7 was a no-action alternative, in which the plan would be to change nothing at all. The other 6, however, had slight changes. The alternatives were created to consider 5 different factors of usage of the dam: monthly pattern and release volume, minimum flows, maximum non-experimental flows, daily range, and elements of base operation. From the 7 proposed alternatives, the preferred alternative that would become the management plan was Alternative D. Under this 20-year plan, there would be 2 different factors from the current usage of the dam. There would be an equal monthly release of water from the dam, except in the months of August and September, when that release would be increased. The other stipulation is that the daily range cannot exceed 8,000 cubic feet, meaning a more consistent flow would be achieved. This management plan was created so that the volume of water in the Colorado River would increase and the wildlife remain protected, while also maintaining hydroelectric output in the Glen Canyon Dam. Also under this management plan, there were experiments that could be conducted in the event of adverse effects occurring. These proposed experiments were designed to maintain or improve the health of the ecosystem should the management plan provide any unforeseen adverse effects. The experiments included a sediment release, aquatic resource-related experiments, experimental vegetation treatment, and hydropower improvement flows. Under the sediment-related experiment, there would be a sediment release into the river in accordance with the release of water from the dam. The goal of this sediment release would be sand mass balancing, which aims to improve the sandbars in the river, altering the flow of the available water. The aquatic resource-related experiments mostly deal with altering the aquatic biota in the river with the hopes of improving the health of the organisms. The various aquatic-related experiments that could be run deal with trout management flows, mechanical removal of trout, low summer flows, and macroinvertebrate production flows. The vegetation treatments aim to do a similar thing as the aquatic resource experiments, as their goal is to improve the health of the riparian areas in the river. There would be the removal of non-native species along the river, as well as the replanting of more native vegetation. Finally, the hydroelectric improvement flow experiments are designed to see what happens to the resources of the Colorado River system if the Glen Canyon Dam operates at its maximum capacity for periods of time. While the management plan still has 14 years left until its 20 years are up, the Colorado River is not looking good. From the 6 years under the current management plan, the volume of water has continued to decrease. While this could be due to an unsuccessful management plan, it can also be attributed to the rising effects of global warming. The Colorado River is fed by snowmelt from the Rocky Mountains. With global warming and increased temperatures, there has been a decrease in winter storms, meaning less snowfall in the mountains. This decrease in snowfall could be a big reason that the river continues to run dry, and a new management plan could be needed in the near future.